The fall sports seasons end, pushing winter sports full steam ahead. College and NFL football inch closer to the playoffs. College hoops is back and a champ has been crowned in the MLB. Who will make and win the college football playoffs, and who do we think will win the Heisman Trophy? It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Hello everyone and welcome back to Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Natalia Hillen. Both Point Park University soccer teams' seasons officially came to an end last week. The men's and women's teams got a spot in the first round of playoffs for the RSC Championships quarterfinals facing Midway University. The men's team won 3-0 and the women's team took the dub 3-1. They then both moved on to the semifinal matchups against big rival University of Rio Grande. The men's team fought hard, but unfortunately took a loss against number 6 nationally ranked University of Rio Grande 4-1. The first half ended scoreless, even with the Red Storm getting 7 shots on goal and PPU shooting 3. All the action happened in the second half. Rio Grande scored the first 2 goals in the 55th minute and the 58th minute, putting Rio up ahead 2-0 until Point Park pioneer Genoto Pistimo scored the third goal of the game in the 65th minute. This was PPU's only shot on the net the entire second half. The last 2 goals were scored by Rio Grande's Tommy Munuzzi Salazar in the 80th minute and Julian Falley in the 82nd minute. The game ended with a final score of 4-1. Rio Grande moved on to the RSC Championship Finals against number 1 WVU Tech this past Saturday. The men's team ended the year with 10 wins, 1 loss, and 2 ties overall, and had 6 wins, 1 loss, and 3 ties in the River States Conference. Getting the 10 wins was the first time in 4 years that the Pioneers earned double-digit wins. Congratulations to the seniors on a great last season and the whole men's team for making it to the playoffs and not giving up. We are so proud of all of your accomplishments this season. Switching gears over to the women's team as they played against Rio Grande in the semifinals at Highmark Stadium. The Pioneers dominated the game with a 15-2 advantage in shots, but unfortunately, one of the only shots that Rio Grande got in resulted in a goal, making the final score 1-0. Amora Albano scored in the 14th minute. PPU had 9 shots in the first half, and Red Storm had 1, but the Pioneers couldn't get the ball past the goal line. In the second half, Point Park had 6 shots on net. They almost were able to tie the game in the 68th minute with Lorena Montanas and Holly Pasco combined hitting the left post. This was the 3rd year in a row that the women's team reached the RSC semifinals and a game away from matching the 12 wins that the 2015 team got for most wins for the program in a season. The women's team ended their season with 11 wins, 5 losses, and 4 draws overall, and 7 wins, 1 loss, and 2 draws in the River States Conference. Congratulations to all the seniors for completing your last season here, and congrats to the whole team for a great season. We are all so proud of you. After the break, we recap volleyball, cross country, and high school football. Don't go anywhere.
Hey.
Good evening and welcome to News Night. My name is Craig Furkowski.
Tonight, we'll cover all your international, national, and local news.
Australia is one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet.
Over 8,000 items are to be auctioned off at Pittsburgh International Airport on October 22nd.
Last Thursday, the House committee investigating the January 6th attack chose to subpoena former President Donald Trump.
All this and more
Coming up on News Night. Welcome back. Now we go to Hannah Bazay to give us a rundown of how the back end of volleyball season went. Hannah?
Thanks, Nat. The Pioneers volleyball season has come to a close after what ended up being an overall disappointing run for the girls. They finished 8-20 overall, but since our last episode have won 2 of the 3 games they've played in. On Halloween, the team faced Seton Hill University, where they lost 3-0. Despite this loss, Point Park's Elise Wallace went over the 1,000 career assist mark. Wallace picked up 18 of those 1,000 assists on Tuesday's game and did it in a record 70 career matches. Congratulations, Elise. Besides this milestone, the game ended with Seton Hill shutting out the Pioneers during all 3 sets of the match, winning 25-13 in the first, 25-15 in the second, and finishing at 25-14 in the third. Now, this game was the last away game of the season, and the Pioneers were able to win both of their final games at home. The first home game was against WVU Tech, where the girls put out a 3-1 victory. The Pioneers had control and secured the victory throughout the first 2 sets, and winning them 25-19 and 25-16. The third set was huge for the Pioneers, as it was back and forth in what could be the longest set ever in Point Park volleyball history. It was back and forth until the end, and WVU Tech managed to extend the set until the final set score of 34-32 Golden Bears. Despite losing this hard-fought third set, the Pioneers made sure they locked in and play hard in the fourth and won 25-22. The game also ended with impressive stats, with the Pioneers having 64 kills, 21 of those being from the second set alone. Multiple players reached double digits, such as Ian McElhaney at 15, Amanda Contois at 13, and Julia Folador with 10. The final game of the season was another victory, but this time against Alice Lloyd. Besides it being the final game of the season, it was also senior night, and Point Park said goodbye to Amanda Contois, Julia Folador, Ashlyn Gulikowski, and Kenzie Zahner. The Pioneers took care of business and fought hard to get the victories in all 3 sets, but came up big in the second set, beating the Eagles 25-8. The Eagles came back in the third set, but couldn't manage to pull out the victory. The game ended with a score of 25-22 in the first, 25-8 in the second, and 26-24 to wrap up the season. I spoke to team captain Ian McElhaney about her thoughts on the season and what she felt the girls needed to do to improve into the next season. Eden said, quote, "I think the outcome of the season wasn't what we hoped, but in the last 2 games, something clicked for us, and we showed what we had been working towards all year. We had an insane amount of injuries, which set us back, but we worked hard and we're excited to get back to work in the spring, to hopefully build off the last 2 games and win the conference next year." Despite the overall season record, we are so proud of our Pioneers and can't wait to see how they do next year. Congratulations to the 4 seniors and the rest of the team on their season. For now, volleyball season is over, but we will be right back here next year recapping the games on Pioneer Sideline when the time comes. Now we go to Anna Eisman with a recap on how cross country did at conferences. Anna?
Thanks, Hannah. The men's and women's cross-country teams wrapped up their season at the River States Conference Championship meet on November 4th at Midway, Kentucky. Both teams gave a strong effort at the Falling Spring cross-country course to finish out the regular season. On the women's end, Point Park scored 145 points and put forth a team average time of 26 minutes and 20 seconds on the 6,000-meter course. Senior Allie Plazio finished off her cross-country career, placing 10th overall to earn a top 10 finish out of nearly 100 runners total. With that effort, she earned all RSC second-team honors with a time of 24:39. Kiara Sawyers was Point Park's second finisher, placing 22nd overall, just shy of all conference honors. She finished with a time of 25:48, and teammate Jana Schmid was not far behind, coming in at 26:34 for 32nd place. Switching gears to the men's team, they placed 6th overall out of 12 teams at the championship meet, scoring 152 total points. Ramiro Unluque, a junior from Bolivia, led the Pioneers in 20th place overall to earn all RSC third-team honors. Point Park's team average for the day was 27 minutes and 8 seconds on the 8,000-meter course. Unluque finished at a time of 26:34 for 20th place overall. Luke McKenna was next up for the Pioneers, coming in at 26:56, and close behind was Eli James at 27:05 to finish 31st and 32nd respectively. Both teams will take a break for a few weeks before transitioning into the indoor track and field season. Good luck to all. Now we go to Ben with a recap of our high school game of the week. Ben?
Thanks, Anna. It was the 5A WPIAL semifinals week as Penn Hills hosted Pine Richland at Martorelli Stadium, with the winner's prize being a trip to the 5A championship. It was a defensive game as Penn Hills led at halftime thanks to a 32-yard field goal by Penn Hills' Landon Haneke, giving them a 3-0 lead. The Indians extended their lead late in the third quarter with Pitt commit Julian Duggar's 8-yard touchdown run. However, the extra point was blocked, leaving their lead to only 9-0. Late in the fourth quarter, Pine Richland finally put points on the board with a 42-yard field goal by Grant Arguero, bringing the score to 9-3 with less than 4 minutes in the game. After getting a big defensive stop, the Rams, with 2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining in the game and in their season, put the ball in the hands of their freshman quarterback, Aaron Ubi Schrader, who drove them down to the Indians' 4-yard line with 10 seconds remaining. Ubi then scrambled his way into the end zone for a touchdown to tie things up at 9. Arguero then made an extra point for the win and taking the lead 10-9 and earning a trip to the 5A WPIL Championship this Saturday against undefeated Peters Township. You can find the highlights of that game next week, along with the 6A WPIL Championship between Pittsburgh Central Catholic and North Allegheny. I'm Ben Tenuta, now back to you, Nat.
Thank you, Anna, Ben, and Hannah. After the break, we break down everything going on locally and nationally. Make sure you stay tuned. Welcome back. Now I'll be sending things over to Nick Shermito for all things locally. Nick?
Thanks, Nat. The Pittsburgh Penguins have bounced back since their early struggles by winning the past 4 games, including sweeping their yearly California road trip for the first time since 1997. They defeated the San Jose Sharks 10-2 on November 4th and followed it up with a 2-0 win over the Anaheim Ducks on November 7th and a 4-3 overtime win against the Los Angeles Kings on November 9th. On Saturday, the Penguins defeated the Buffalo Sabres 4-0 to improve to 7-6-0 on the season. Evgeny Malkin scored from an impossible angle with 59 seconds left in the first period to give the Pens the 1-0 lead. Then, with 3:36 left in the second period, Drew O'Connor scored his first of the season to give the Penguins the 2-0 lead. 27 seconds into the third period, Erik Karlsson scored his third goal as a Penguin to give the Pens the 3-0 lead. With 1:49 left in the game, Karlsson potted his second into the empty net to give the Pens the 4-0 win. The Pens look to carry their momentum into Columbus tonight as they take on youngster Adam Fantilli and the Columbus Blue Jackets. As for the Buccos, Cabrian Hayes was named the 2023 National League Gold Glove Award winner for third baseman. It was his first Gold Glove win of his career and the first time a Pirate third baseman won this prestigious award. He ends St. Louis Cardinals third baseman Nolan Arenado's streak of 10 consecutive Gold Glove awards. Lastly, for the Riverhounds, striker Albert Dikwa was named 2023 USL Championship Player of the Year. He led the league with 20 goals in 28 games in the regular season, which helped the Hounds claim the Players' Shield for 2023. With that in mind, let's hear from Steelers fan 7 himself, John Mayer, as he recaps the Steelers' win over the Packers. John?
Thanks, Nick. The Pittsburgh Steelers continued their winning ways this past Sunday, defeating the Green Bay Packers by a score of 23-19 in a nail-biting thriller. The Steelers got the ground game going in a huge way on Sunday, with the Steelers rushing for a combined 201 yards versus Green Bay, with Jaylen Warren rushing for 101 of those yards, while Najee Harris finished with 82 yards rushing, with both backs notching a touchdown apiece. Packers quarterback Jordan Love did not make this game easy for Pittsburgh, as he connected for 2 passing touchdowns against the Steelers' defense. But when it mattered the most, the Pittsburgh defense rose to the occasion, as the secondary unit came away with 2 huge interceptions late in the game off of Jordan Love, with Green Bay driving multiple times to try and win the game. The first interception came from Keanu Neal off a batted Patrick Peterson pass in the end zone. And the second pick of the day came from DeMonte KZ, which officially wrapped up the Steelers' win. During the win, Steelers All-Pro pass rusher TJ Watt made some history by passing up his brother JJ Watt for the second most sacks through a player's first 100 games in NFL history, with Watt's 88th career sack, only second now to Reggie White for the most in a player's first 100 games. Next up, the Steelers will travel to Cleveland for a rematch against the Browns in a pivotal AFC North Division matchup. With both teams sitting at 6-3, can the Steelers defeat the Browns once again and continue their upward climb among the AFC's elite teams? We will find out this Sunday in Cleveland. That's all from me this week. Make sure to follow @SteelerFan7 to stay regularly updated on everything throughout the remainder of the season. With that in mind, let's hear from Matt Palangi about the rest of the sports world. Matt?
Thanks, John. The NFL season has been flying by. With 10 weeks done, there's a lot to recap, with multiple teams sitting firm on top of the standings and others falling very short. First team to highlight has to be the Philadelphia Eagles, who are sitting safe as the best team in football at an 8-1 record, just recently squeezing out a victory against strong division rival the Dallas Cowboys, and the Eagles then went on bye. The Cowboys, who are 6-3, are sticking in the NFC. While on topic of the NFC, the Detroit Lions are second in the whole conference at 7-2. The Vikings have got some resurgence after having a rough start to the year, but are now 6-4 with their new starting quarterback Joshua Dobbs, who is making a name for himself. The NFC South is a poor division again, but the Saints are on top at a 5-5 record. The NFC West is surprisingly close, with the Seahawks sharing a 6-3 record with the San Francisco 49ers. Let's take a look now at the very competitive AFC, where the Bills just lost to the Denver Broncos and fall to 5-5, with many speculation around Josh Allen's turnover issue. The Dolphins lead the Bills in the AFC East at a 6-3 record. The AFC North is likely the best division in football this year, with every team being above 500. The Ravens and Browns just had a matchup in which the Browns made an incredible comeback to win. The Browns are still third in that division, with the Ravens in first at 7-3 and the Steelers in second at 6-3. The Bengals are improving after their slow start, but after a loss to the Texans, they are now 5-4. Speaking of the Texans, CJ Stroud is balling out right now, and many saying he also is in the MVP conversation as well as the Rookie of the Year conversation. Jacksonville, although, still leads that division at 6-3. The Chiefs are on top of the AFC at 7-2. With that recap on the NFL standings, let's peek over at the college football season. The current standings are updated, with Georgia at 1, Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 3, and Florida State at 4. The 5th spot is being held by Washington, who are led by Heisman frontrunner Michael Penix Jr. With multiple key matchups coming up for some of these teams, standings could change at any time. Michigan will play against all-time rival The Ohio State University in a couple weeks, and that game can adjust standings. Colorado was a team that was making headlines after headline week after week, but are now quiet after a losing streak. Penn State at one point was a top team, but after losing to Ohio State and Michigan, they most likely won't even be in consideration for a potential championship. Let's cross on over to college basketball now. The game of the season so far was held by Arizona against Duke. Duke being a slight favorite, yet they ended up losing to the Wildcats. Arizona now shot up to a top 3 team in the country. It's very early in the season still, but it's always good to keep an eye out to see what squads you like as March comes around. Since our last filming, the MLB season has come to a close. The Texas Rangers would take home the crown, and Corey Seager would get his second championship MVP. Congratulations to the Rangers, who beat a young and surprising Diamondbacks team, who I'm sure we will continue to see make playoff runs. That's all from me and the rest of us. Back to you at the desk, Nat.
Thanks, guys. After the break, we will be back with the case of the week. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back
to
Daybreak.
Chicken Guy opened in PPG Place on Monday.
The bridge would open before the 1 year marks to check out the 20th annual gingerbread display.
Share with you this week's Ray of Sunshine.
We are still somehow hanging around in the playoff.
It gives Georgia Democrats some hold onto the governing body.
200,000 people still in harm's way.
This weather is perfect for those cozy nights indoors.
Welcome back to Case of the Week. This week I'm joined by Matt, Ryan, and Gabe, and we're going to discuss who we think will mark their spot in the college football playoffs and who will win this year's Heisman Trophy. So we're first going to start off. Matt, what do you think of the playoffs
Right now, I honestly like the standings. I think that they're like kind of how they should be, if that makes sense. The only team that I think could deserve a spot is Washington over Florida State, but their defense is just so terrible that I don't know if I just think Penix deserves a spot in the playoffs. But right now I kind of like the standings. The matchup versus Ohio State versus Michigan coming up in a couple weeks, that'll see whichever team wins that is going to be higher than the other. But right now I honestly do like the standings.
Mm-hmm. So I did agree with you. I'd rather have Washington over FSU, which I don't know why the media is forgetting, but it did take FSU 3.5 quarters to beat Pitt, a Pitt team who is 2-7 as we sit here today. Washington's honestly the better team over FSU. I mean, yeah, the defense is not the best, but again, this is Pac-12 defense. None of the defenses are good in the Pac-12, but that Pac-12 offense, especially Washington's offense, is firepower with that quarterback, receiver play. They still have a top-tier running back, too, as well, that no one talks about. So I still feel like Washington should be above FSU.
From a playoff aspect, I would probably argue you could even put Washington over Michigan, because Michigan, they beat Penn State, but other than that, they've played nobody all year. And I definitely think Ohio State should also be over Michigan. But 2 and 3 really don't matter because, like you said, they're going to play each other probably for the Big Ten title and also in the first round of the playoffs anyway. But I think you could argue Washington should be up that number 3 spot with Ohio State being at 2.
Yeah, I think once Michigan plays Ohio State, we'll learn more. But right now, I think we'll just have to wait till then for sure to see if the standings should adjust at all.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely excited to see OSU play against Michigan. Penn State, let's just talk about Penn State real quick because they literally get so far until they play OSU or Michigan and then they just lose.
It's the James Franklin effect. He just can't play Ohio State or Michigan.
No,
he has, I think, won twice against those teams in the 6 years he's been there.
4 times, but
yeah. But again, he's still not a good record for a top tier tier program.
But they're not bad though. Their defense is really good. It's just they just don't match up. They don't match up well against Marvin Harrison. They don't match up well against Michigan. That's how honestly the game just without Marvin Harrison, they probably beat Ohio State. But yeah, that's how Penn State is right now though.
That's funny. And who do we think's gonna win the Heisman Trophy out of all of these?
Okay, so for me right now, as much as I want to say a guy like Penix, because I truly believe that he's having an incredible season, came out of the blue this year, I got to give it to Marvin Harrison. it's normally a quarterback award, and that's like the disadvantage he has for me. But like, to be honest, if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison, I think his quarterback's probably going to throw the defense 5 times a game. Kyle McCord's not that guy. If you're the Ohio State quarterback, you obviously have some sort of talent to where they trust you enough. But Marvin Harrison is, in my opinion, that whole offense. That run game took a huge step down this year from Ohio State. The pass game is obviously not as consistent as it was without JSN there, and especially without CJ Stroud there. Justin Fields was there beforehand. They've just been stacked with QBs. So taking that step down to Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison's still putting up 150-yard games, beating teams basically by himself, only scoring 20 points. They get to the red zone literally because of one catch from Marvin Harrison. So I want to give him the Heisman Trophy this year. I just think that he deserves it. Devontae Smith won it a couple years ago, and I think Marvin Harrison's having a better year than Devontae Smith did when he won it.
Wow.
So I'm going to stay in the QB area, and I'm going to go with Bo Nix. So he's currently 5th in all Heisman candidates, which I know everybody's looking like, why am I taking the 5th option? But Bo Nix is making all the passes that's needed for the Oregon Ducks. His only loss came to a undefeated Washington team who's honestly one of the hottest teams in college football, and he's played some of the top-tier towns out of the Pac-12. I mean, say what you want about Pac-12 dismantling out this year. This is the best year Pac-12's looked. They're arguably Bo Nix is one of the best quarterbacks. He's the most pro-ready quarterback in college football right now. He deserves that the Heisman Trophy.
I would stay in the QB realm, but I think that the best player to win it with the strongest case is probably Jaden Daniels from LSU. I mean, the dude is an entire offense. He checks every single box. And yeah, you can say LSU has 3 losses. They're 7-3 this year, but one loss, they lost to Ole Miss 55-49. You can't really blame the quarterback for that one. They put in the loss to Alabama. Not to Alabama, excuse me. To Alabama. He had the most. They scored the most points against Alabama all year out of any team. So you can't really blame the quarterback. And then in the first game of the season against Florida State, another undefeated team who currently sits in the college football playoffs, he had 400 yards. He turned the ball over one time, and he put up multiple touchdowns on the board. Once again, it's hard to blame that guy against that top tier of a team. And then you look at what he does. He checks every box passing-wise. I mean, 72% accuracy. He's 3rd in FBS in passing yards, 30 touchdowns this year, only 4 picks. Hasn't had a game with multiple interceptions. Running the ball, 27th in the FBS in rushing. That includes running backs. The dude's ran for over 900 yards this year. He's ran for 8 touchdowns on the ground. That means he's put up over 4,000 yards of offense by himself this year. He is an entire offense. And regardless of what you want to say about the defense, he gets the job done. He's only taken 8 sacks this year. He's lost 40 yards on sacks. He does everything. He holds on to the ball. There's nothing that you could write to make a better quarterback than Jaden Daniels in the way he's played this year, regardless of how the team's performed.
I like Jaden Daniels more than I like Bo Nix for Heisman this year, but I'm surprised none of you guys said Penix, because I truly believe that Penix, if I didn't choose Marvin Harrison, I would have to say Penix should be the clear front runner. Because one thing we know about all sports is that if you're not one of the best teams, you probably don't get an award. That's been that way for a while. The last time I can remember an MVP in any sport who wasn't a top team was Westbrook winning MVP as it's a 6th seed. Normally if you're not up there, you're not going to win it. And that's why I would say although I think Jaden Daniels he's starting to, in my opinion, be one of the top QBs in the country, I feel like you have to say Penix is probably a bigger favorite than Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, but that could just be me giving the team biased.
I don't think that Penix is a better case to make it if they don't make the playoffs, though, because he had that really terrible game where they struggled. They put up 15 points all game. He didn't score a touchdown. He threw 2 picks. He's had a bad performance on his resume this year, whereas Daniels really hasn't. And unless Washington makes the playoffs, I don't see how being the 5, 6, 7 trumps being the 13 in the grand scheme of things.
I'll say it too about Bo Nix. Bo Nix didn't he didn't play the best against Washington, but he also did put up more points than 15 points. That's why I still like him more than Penix.
Well, I like everyone that we've named. It's just it just comes down to what negatives I've seen from the quarterbacks. I think Jaden Daniels I just don't think his team's good enough, and that sucks for him because he's really, really good. Bo Nix, you said he struggled against Washington, one of the worst defenses in the country. So that's why I would say I would say Jaden Daniels probably should be above Bo Nix, but I think Penix should be above all the other QBs. I still think Marvin Harrison should win it, though.
Well, we're going to have to see, guys. We're going to have to see what happens. And with all that speculation, that's all the time that we have for this week. Be sure to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.